Oh, hi, everybody. Another day, another airport. Today I'm in Regina, the Queen City, the capital of Saskatchewan, a province that joined Confederation on the same day as Alberta back in 1905. Yesterday, there was a meeting in Saskatoon of the First Ministers, Mark Carney meeting with the premiers. And Carney said something really bizarre. He said, oh, sure, he'll support oil as long as it's decarbonized. Decarbonized. Look at that really weird clip.
Now, within the broader context of national interest, the interest is in, as mentioned in the press release, decarbonized barrels. So working alongside forms of decarbonization for those barrels. That is absolutely in our interest. It provides diversification of trade partners. It provides the development of new industries. It provides economic activity across the west and into the north. So yes, there's real potential there. We took up a good deal of our time in discussions and potential to move forward on that. And if further developed, the federal government will look to advance it.
You know that carbon is what makes oil, right? It's an element in the periodic table. You can't take carbon out of oil. It's just part of it. That would be like taking hydrogen out of water. It's not water anymore. I think he's a BSer. I think he's trying to square the circle. For the last decade of his public life, he's been against oil and gas. He's talked about transition off oil and gas, but he just lacks the courage to tell Alberta and Saskatchewan and BC and the other energy producing provinces that no, he actually is going to carry through on the Liberal tradition of blocking oil and gas. There's no such thing as decarbonized oil, and anyone who tells you that is selling you something. That was going on in Saskatoon, while last night we had a large meeting in Regina, about 500 people there, talking about the possibility of independence. Because if Alberta has a referendum on independence next year, which looks almost like a certainty, I think Saskatchewan would pay very close attention because, like I say, it was born on the same day as Alberta. The two provinces are twins. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but the original plan was for Alberta and Saskatchewan to join Confederation together as one big province called Buffalo, which is sort of cool when you think about it. I want to tell you one more thing about Mark Carney before I show you some footage from last night's event with 500 folks. Carney also announced his principal secretary, which is sort of like his right-hand man, his senior advisor and confidant. For Justin Trudeau, that person was Gerald Butts until he left in disgrace. He left, but it was always in the background. And he found a soft landing at a company, a lobby group in New York City called the Eurasia Group, run by Ian Bremmer, that gets a lot of money from the Canadian government. It's sort of like Liberals in exile work there. Well, wouldn't you know it, Evan Solomon went there after he was sort of exiled from the CBC. Now he's an MP, and he was just elevated to AI, Artificial Intelligence Cabinet Minister for Carney. And you know who else works there is Carney's wife. It's quite a little place. Ian Bremmer has a lot of influence in Canadian politics, and it's for sale, by the way. What's sort of interesting is during the campaign, he made a tweet that said, oh, don't pay attention to what Mark Carney says, attacking Donald Trump. He doesn't mean it. After the election, he'll calm down and be compliant. That was his advice to his clients and his followers. Turns out that's exactly what Mark Carney did. Anyways, back to the principal secretary appointment. Mark Carney has appointed David Lametti to be his personal secretary. His cabinet is his right-hand man. You'll know David Lametti as the disgraced justice minister who quit and sort of sneaked out of Parliament. He was the one, there's a lot of scandal around David Lametti. First of all, he was brought in after Jody Wilson-Raybould quit, or was fired actually. Jody Wilson-Raybould was perhaps the most principled justice minister in Canadian history. She wouldn't go along with Justin Trudeau's schemes to stop a prosecution against his buddies at a corrupt firm called SNC-Lavalin. And Gerald Butts was the main proponent of that. So anyhow, she was drummed out of government, but kept her honor and her ethics. David Lametti was brought in by Justin Trudeau to do the opposite. However clean Jody Wilson-Raybould was, David Lametti's job was to be dirty. He was to be the one who said yes to anything Trudeau wanted. And in fact, it came to pass that when the Emergencies Act was proposed, clearly illegal, clearly inappropriate, clearly unconstitutional as a way to deal with the peaceful truckers, David Lametti rubber stamped it. I really, to this day, believe that Jody Wilson-Raybould would not have rubber stamped that, but Lametti did, and the court struck it down as illegal. Shortly after that is when Lametti left. And you might remember, when he left, he deleted his Twitter account, which, not his personal one, his government Twitter account, which meant the destruction of all sorts of public records, including his private messages. Rebel News ran to court very quickly, and no one less than the Chief Justice of the federal court himself heard the case. Lametti was so embarrassed by our lawsuit that he agreed not to delete those records and to hand them over to the library and the archives. So even in his disgraceful exit from Parliament, he's a slippery fish and unethical. That's the guy brought back by Mark Carney. But there's one more thing I want to tell you about David Lametti. I don't know if you remember this, but he mused about removing the ability for Western provinces to use their oil and gas constitutionally. Here's the story. He was speaking at an Aboriginal event, and he mused out loud that maybe Canada would take away the constitutional right for Alberta and Saskatchewan to develop oil and gas and coal and other mineral wealth, because you may know that those provinces, when they joined Confederation, were unequal, and they didn't have those rights. They had to fight for them. Lametti, speaking to an Indigenous group, said, you know what? Wouldn't it be cool if we took away the constitutional power of Alberta and Saskatchewan to run their own energy? And he never really backed down from that, and neither did Trudeau. Well, that man, the anti-Alberta, anti-Saskatchewan, dishonorable, sneaky, deeply unethical, document-shredding Montreal insider, has been refurbished and renovated, and he is now the senior insider for Mark Carney. Just disgraceful, super gross, and I think it's a bit of a declaration of war against Alberta and Saskatchewan. Anyway, speaking of Saskatchewan, I'm getting on the plane going back to home. It's the morning after a huge event that we had in Regina. I mean, seriously, to get 500 people out in Regina, I mean, proportionately, that would be like 5,000 people in Toronto. They were very interested because I don't think Saskatchewan will lead any independence movement, but it's right next to Alberta, which will. And the provinces are so close. It's almost like they're fraternal twins born on the same day. Similar sentiments, similar culture, similar history, similar politics. I mean, so many Saskatchewan people moved to Alberta during the tough times of the NDP, and Saskatchewan's just been booming. There's so much cross-pollination. It really should have been one big province, by the way. So I think that Saskatchewan, if they see Alberta has a separatist or sovereigntist or independence referendum, they might say, hey, can we get that too? And remember, in Alberta, Premier Danielle Smith has said that she's not going to be for independence, but she will allow the people to choose. And I think that's not only a strategic move, but it gives her power in negotiating with Mark Carney. It's the or else. She has a list of demands on behalf of the people of Alberta, but those demands have been made for years, and Ottawa just laughs. David Lametti laughs and talks about pushing Alberta around some more, pushing Saskatchewan around some more. But now, with a separatist referendum in the wind, there's an or else to it if the Laurentian elites choose not to listen to what Alberta and Saskatchewan want. So that's going to be very interesting.